All rise. The Superior Court of Spartanburg County is now in session. The Honorable Judge Virginski presiding. God save the state and this honorable court.
You may be seated. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're back before you in regard to the case of the state versus Barbara Barrett. I would like to add, you are able to use electronic devices if you need to take photographs, pictures. I apologize if there was any confusion, but you are able to use that. Just if you could, keep your devices on vibrate, and please feel free to take whatever pictures you need to. Again, we're before the court in regard to the case of the state versus Barbara Barrett. And who's representing Ms. Barrett?
Me, Your Honor.
And how does your client wish to plead?
Not guilty.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, Ms. Barrett was entered a plea of not guilty. Therefore, the burden is on the city or the state to prove Ms. Barrett's guilt by proof beyond a reasonable doubt. Are my jurors prepared to go forward? And you solemnly swear to God that you will well and truly try this case according to the law and the evidence presented by both parties, and that you do so under the penalty of perjury, so help you God. All right, ladies and gentlemen, again, Ms. Barrett has been charged with the offense of murder. She's given a plea of not guilty. Is the state prepared to begin their opening statement?
Yes, Your Honor.
Glad to hear you.
May it please the court, Your Honor, and ladies and gentlemen of the jury, my name is Shannon Neds, and I will be making the opening remarks in this case. Allow me to introduce you to my co-counsels, Elijah Powell and Emily Kirsto. I would also like to introduce my plaintiffs, Officer C.M. Cheney, Lee Porter, and Joe Armand. This case is about a woman who deliberately and with a forethought murdered her husband. On the night of December 18, 1988, John Walker Barrett, the defendant's husband, came home sober around 9 p.m. The deceased John Barrett and the defendant Barbara Barrett had an argument in the living room which continued through dinner. John told Barbara he was planning on divorcing her and that his intention was to move out that night. During dinner, Barbara Barrett left the table and went into the living room. John followed shortly after. As Lee Porter, the housekeeper, was clearing the dining room table, he heard loud noises close together and suddenly saw John limping into the dining room. His leg and arm were covered in blood, as well as a letter that was in his hand. When the police arrived shortly after, John was found dead, face down on the floor. We will prove that Barbara Barrett committed 16-3-10, murder defined, which is a killing of another human being, having been planned ahead and with an evil intent. Though motive is not an essential part of this wicked crime, we will prove that Barbara Barrett had a significant amount of motive. Barbara Barrett also lied about the beatings and in fact knew that John was supposedly abusive before she even married him. She brought this situation upon herself, knowing exactly what she was doing. We will prove that Barbara is a liar and cannot be trusted. Our first witness will be Officer C.M. Cheney. He is a skilled and committed policeman who has much experience in dealing with homicides. On the night of December 18, 1988, C.M. Cheney was dispatched to 2437 Grand Ridge Drive on the account of a murder. He carefully examined all valid evidence and recorded it in his police report. Today, he will give a layout of the Barrett residence. He will also testify to the letter he found in the deceased's hand and that Barbara admitted to killing her husband. Our second witness will be Lee Porter, the Barrett's housekeeper. He had been working for the Barretts for about 6 months when the unfortunate murder of John Walker Barrett occurred. Today, he will testify that he heard Barbara shoot and kill her husband and that he saw Barbara practicing with the same gun she killed John with earlier that day. Lee Porter will also testify that the deceased was sober on the night of the murder. Our final witness will be Joe Armand. He is a medical doctor pathologist who carefully and thoroughly examined the deceased's body. Today he will testify to how many bullet wounds there were, including the bullet that caused the death. He will also testify that John was lying on the floor, face down, when Barbara shot him in the back of the head. We are demanding that the court find Barbara Barrett guilty of a heinous and unacceptable crime of murder. On the night of December 18, 1988, Barbara not only murdered her husband, but made it impossible for someone to ever trust her again. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Yes, Your Honor. May it please the court, Your Honor, and ladies and gentlemen of the jury, my name is Micah Reese, and I will be making the opening remarks for this case. And this is my co-counsel, Carson Bowen. In this case, Mrs. Barrett was married to John Walker Barrett, who was an abusive and impulsive person. Even before their marriage, Mr. Barrett was an abusive and had a bad temper. Mr. Barrett told Mrs. Barrett there would be no more beatings, but it was only the beginning. He continued to beat her without any hesitation or sign of stopping. Mrs. Barrett was beaten so severely that she made a valiant attempt in self-defense and shot and killed her abusive husband. Mrs. Barrett was eating dinner as normal when her husband told her that he wanted a divorce and never gave a reason why. Mrs. Barrett was upset, as any decent person would be, and Mr. Barrett angrily forced her to leave the room. She went into the living room as her husband had commanded, knowing what was to come. He later came into the room, belt in hand, and a wild look in his eyes. Barbara knew she had to do something before she would be beaten for the last time. She had only one thing left to do before she would be beaten. She shot and killed her husband just in time. Realizing what she had done, she locked herself in the bathroom in grief. We will show that Mrs. Barrett was acting out of self-defense and feared her husband. The plaintiff must prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that the killing was premeditated, as stated in State Statute 16-3-10, murder defined, quote, murder is the killing with malice aforethought, either expressed or implied, end quote. The plaintiff must also prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that Barbara was not acting out of self-defense. The plaintiff must prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that the defendant was not abused. Mrs. Barrett is the true victim, not John. Officer C.M. Chaney was collecting data at the scene, but he is incompetent at his job due to the fact that he is worn thin because he is working 2 full-time jobs, has a family, and is a student. Joe R. May is there just to show there is a dead body, which he didn't even do correctly. Lee Porter is the only eyewitness on this case, and we will prove that he is untrustworthy and that he has committed petty larceny as stated in State Statute, State v. Chastain, quote, to be competent in evidence, the former crimes the witness must have involved moral delinquency and tended to show his character as in such a way to render his testimony unworthy of belief, end quote. Mrs. Barrett is the defendant of this case, even though she should be the plaintiff, because of how severe she was beaten. Dana McGuire is a professional psychologist and will be testifying about battered and abused women and the negative effects it causes to them. Mrs. Barrett did what any person would do in such a dire situation. Based on self-defense, we ask that the jury find the defendant innocent of all charges. Thank you.
State prepared to call us for the witness?
Yes, Your Honor. I would like to call C.M. Chaney to the stand. Introduce yourself to the court.
My name is Sam Chaney. I am 29 years old and I've been working for the Milton County Police Department for 7 years.
Where was your partner on the night of the murder?
My partner, whose name is Ralph Simmons, was at home sick on the night of December 18, 1988.
Where did you get your degree in criminal justice, and where are you getting your advanced degree in criminal justice?
I already got my degree in criminal justice from the Southland College in Haddonfield, South Carolina, and I am working currently towards getting my degree in criminal justice from the Campbell State University, which is also located in Haddonfield, South Carolina.
Your Honor, I would like to make him an expert witness.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
I move to have Mr. Chaney designated as an expert witness.
What's your job at a crime scene?
My job at crime scene is to observe physical proximities, take measurements of the crime scene, and interview witnesses and suspects.
What are your past experiences with homicide?
I've been called to the site of numerous homicides in my extensive career with the Milton County Police Department.
Who was at the house when you arrived?
Lee Porter and Barbara Barrett. Lee Porter was the reporter who called the police about the incident.
Your Honor, I would like to enter the house diagram into evidence.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
Mark the diagram as City's Exhibit Number 1 into evidence without objection.
Please show us on the diagram where you found the body of Mr. Barrett.
May I approach the diagram?
Yes.
I found the body of John Walker Barrett in the dining room.
What gun was used at the crime scene?
The gun was located right next to Mr. Barrett. It was a .38 caliber Smith & Wesson with a 6-inch barrel. I later discovered that there were 6 rounds spent from the gun.
What evidence was there that Barbara was drinking that night?
I found a glass of wine that was half full, along with multiple lipstick marks on it.
What did you tag as evidence that was on Mr. Barrett's body?
I tagged a bloody letter that was clutched in his lifeless hand. Along with, I later discovered that there was an envelope with the word Tootsie written on the front of it.
Your Honor, I would like to enter the Tootsie letter into evidence.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
And mark the exhibit as states exhibit number 2 into evidence of docket.
Please read the Tootsie letter.
My dearest Tootsie, you will never know how much your love means to me. The first time I saw you in court, I knew I could not live without you. All these years being married to Barbara has been like a living hell for me. As you know, Barbara is really a fine person, but her possessiveness and her drug habits have become a burden I can no longer bear. I have tried all these years to keep away from our friends, but I can try no longer. Please do not think you have stolen me away from her. Our marriage has been dead for a long time. And I do not wish her ill. I just cannot live without you, my wonderful child. And to think that I could have spent the rest of my days in that unhappy marriage had I not met you. I realize I am older than you by many years, but for the years I have left, I have wished to be your husband. Perhaps you will not think me foolish to say that we could soon have children, the one that I have so desperately wanted for so many years, but which Barbara would not have. We could be so happy together. Or this may sound overly sentimental. I have shown you a side to me which few people will ever see. I love you with my whole being, my darling, as I have never loved before. Please say you will wait for me, and I will tell Barbara soon.
In your expert opinion, what does that letter show?
It shows that Barbara Barrett had motive to kill her husband because John had a reason to leave, because John wanted to leave her that night.
Why was there a missing door in your house diagram?
Could you please repeat the question?
Yes. Why was there a missing door in your house diagram?
The kitchen door you referred to was I did not put it on the house diagram because it was not part of the crime scene. Therefore, it had no reason of being on the diagram.
On the night of the murder, when did you meet Barbara?
I met Barbara as soon as she came out of the bathroom.
Tell us what Barbara said when the doctor arrived.
When the doctor arrived, Barbara was saying things like, "I didn't mean to hurt John, and why did he have to hurt me so?" I then later replied with, and I asked if Barbara had been threatened by her husband before she shot her husband, and she replied that he had not.
Tell us your procedure for reading the Miranda warning.
I make a habit of reading the Miranda warnings, both at the time of the arrest and before she read and signed the typed version.
When did you take Miss Barrett's statement?
About 30 minutes after her arrival at the police station.
Why did you write your witness statement?
I wrote my witness statement because I thought it was important to add something to the police report.
What did you want to add onto your police report?
I wanted to add on to the police report that I was the officer who transported her to the police station, was the one who took her witness statement, and read Barbara Barrett her rights.
Your Honor, I would like to enter into evidence confession of Officer Morgan.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
And mark this statement as states exhibit number 3 into evidence without objection.
Please read the first paragraph and the signature.
I, Barbara Allen Barrett, have been warned by Sam Chain, the person whom this statement is made, that 1. I have the right to have a lawyer present to advise me both prior and during any questioning. 2. If unable to employ a lawyer, I have the right to remain silent. I have the right to have a lawyer appointed to the counsel with me both prior and during any questioning. 3. I have the right to remain silent and not make any statement at all. And any statement I make will possibly be used as evidence against me in my trial. And 4. I have the right to terminate an interview at any time so I desire.
And the signature?
Signed, Barbara Allen Barrett, and witnessed by C.M. Cheney.
In your expert opinion, who murdered Mr. Barrett?
Due to the evidence that that I have shown so far, I think there's only one possible explanation, and that is the fact that Barbara Barrett did indeed murder her husband.
Your Honor, I have no further questions.
Cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honor.
Officer Cheney, is it true that you're married with 2 young children?
It is.
Is it true that you work an extra job as a security guard at the First Bank and Trust Company on your off hours?
That is true.
In addition to raising a young family and working multiple jobs, are you also working to get an advanced degree in criminal justice?
Objection, Your Honor. That question has been asked and answered.
I'm going to allow the question. Yes.
In addition to raising a young family and working multiple jobs, are you also working to get an advanced degree in criminal justice?
I am currently working to get an advanced degree in criminal justice, yes.
Were you the investigating officer at the home of John Walker and Barbara Allen Barrett on the night of December 18, 1988?
Yes, I was.
Did you also state that you were working alone on that same night?
Yes, I was riding along that night.
So you had no help or no partner that night?
Yes, that is true.
The evidence.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
I'm going to mark this as defense exhibit number 1 into evidence without objection.
Would you please look over this and confirm that you did complete this report?
Yes.
Would you please read aloud from the introduction beginning on line 7 with, quote, "He was lying in a pool of blood," and read until I stop you?
He was lying in a pool of blood and appeared to have several bullet wounds to his body, including one wound to the back of the head and one to the right back thigh, and several to the back.
Okay, thank you. In the introduction you just read, you stated that there was a bullet wound to the right back thigh of Mr. Barrett. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Please read from the same report in the details section beginning on line 18 with, quote, "The deceased," and continue until I stop you.
The deceased began to run towards the dining room, and the actor shot him again, this time hitting him in the left leg and then in the thigh area.
Okay, thank you. So in your introduction, you stated that there was a bullet wound to the right of the back thigh of Mr. Barrett, but you just read to us in the detailed section that there was a hit to the left leg on the thigh area. Is this true, Officer Cheney?
Yes, it is.
Did you make an error on this incident report?
Yes, I did.
Your Honor, I would like to re-enter the city's exhibit number 1, completed by Officer Cheney.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor. Did you draw the diagram of Barrett?
Yes, I did.
Do you believe that this diagram is 100% accurate?
Yes, it is 100% accurate.
Would you not consider the whole house to be a part of the crime scene?
I would only consider the part where John Walker Barrett was murdered part of the crime scene.
In your incident report, you stated that a man's belt was found on top of the coat, which was lying on the floor. Is this correct?
Yes, it is.
Could you please take a look at your diagram? And is the belt drawn on top of the coat, which is lying on the floor?
May I approach the diagram?
Question?
Is the belt drawn on top of the coat, which is lying on the floor?
No, the reason the belt's not drawn on top.
Okay, thank you. So is this another error, Officer Cheney?
No, it is not.
Okay. Were you the officer who obtained the signed statement from Mrs. Barrett?
Yes, I was.
In your statement, you said that you do not specifically remember reading the Miranda warnings to Mrs. Barrett before you took your statement. Is this correct?
The reason I have a habit of reading the Miranda warnings is because I don't, is for the
Yes or
exact
no,
reason.
please.
The reason I have a habit of reading the Miranda warnings is for the exact reason, so I don't have to remember every single time I've ever read a Miranda.
Okay, thank you. But would you agree that you do not specifically recall reading the Miranda warnings to Mrs. Barrett that night, whether it is a habit or not?
Yes, I would agree with that.
Thank you. Officer Cheney, would you agree that because you're working more than one job, trying to raise a family and trying to complete your criminal justice degree, that in fact you could be overworked and that could be causing you to make errors such as the diagram?
No, I would not.
Okay. No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you, sir. Statement called to next witness.
I would like to call Lee Porter to the stand.
Do you find that the evidence in the statement for the jury is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Introduce yourself to the court.
I am Lee Porter, and I am 47 years old.
How long have you been a housekeeper?
Practically all my life.
How long have you worked for the barracks and what are your usual hours?
Around 6 months or so, the usual hours are from 2 in the afternoon to 10 o'clock.
Who else worked for the barracks?
There's some other girl who works in the mornings.
How did Mr. Barrett show abuse or violence towards you?
He occasionally got mad to the things, but he always apologized afterwards.
In what ways did Mr. Barrett abuse Miss Barrett?
Well, I never saw anything, but I occasionally heard loud verbal arguments.
How often did you see Mr. Barrett drink?
Not much, but he is occasionally drunk.
On the morning of the shooting, what did you hear?
I heard loud shooting type noises in the yard, but it could have been a car backfiring.
What did you see after you heard those noises?
I saw Mrs. Barrett coming in through a private door that she never uses with a large garden.
Around what time does Mr. Barrett usually come home?
No definite time, anywhere from 7 to 8:30.
What time did he come home on the night of the shooting?
Really normal, just 9 o'clock.
What had Mr. Barrett been drinking that night?
He hadn't been working, came home sober.
What kind of mood was Mr. Barrett in that night?
He was kind of mad and upset.
What mood was Mr. and Mrs. Barrett in at dinner?
They were both very mad and yelling at each other.
What did you hear them say at dinner?
Objection, Your Honor. Counsel is asking for a hearsay response.
Your response?
Your Honor, this is an exception to the hearsay rule number 2, excited utterance.
I'm going to sustain the objection to allow you to lay the foundation in regard to how it may be excited others.
Okay, may I talk with my co-counsel real quick? Your Honor, this is excited utterance because Mr. Barrett was angry and upset that night.
I'm going to overrule the objection, say the objection at this time.
How many gunshots did you hear?
That night, I think I heard 3.
Where did you go back and why did you go back inside about 10 minutes later?
I mean, after I heard gunshots and ran outside, I was excited. I thought I should go check on Mr. Barrett because Mrs. Barrett seemed like she was trying to hurt her or even kill him.
Where did you find Mr. Barrett's body when you went back inside? I'm sorry. Where did you find Miss Barrett when you went back inside?
She had locked herself in the bathroom. She was yelling.
What did you hear Miss Barrett say when she was in the bathroom?
She was screaming things like, I didn't mean to hurt her, and why did you have to hurt me so?
Tell us about your previous arrest.
I arrested once a while ago because some lady I worked for said I took some money from her.
Why did you plead guilty but in your witness statement say you didn't do it?
I wanted to get a lesser sentence.
Your Honor, I have no further questions.
Cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honor.
Your Honor, I would like to enter into evidence Mr. Porter's statement.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
You mark the statement as defense exhibit number 2.
Please read the red underlined section starting on line 5.
But ever since I came to work for the Barretts, I knew something was not right. Mr. Barrett came home later all the time, and Mrs. Barrett was crying, especially during these last weeks.
So you knew something was wrong and that there was an excessive amount of crime?
Yeah, I think.
Okay, thank you. Please read the blue underlined section starting on line 7.
I also never saw any bruises on Mrs. Barrett, but I wasn't looking because I wasn't that business.
So you admit that you were also not paying attention and wouldn't notice any bruising?
It wasn't that I wasn't paying attention, I was just noticing the obvious stuff.
Okay. Did Mr. Barrett have a bad temper?
Yes, he did. He was always missing me, though.
Okay. Please read the green underlined section starting on line 10.
Sometimes when the dinner wasn't cooked the way he liked it, he'd throw something like his fork. But usually he'd come afterwards and say he was sorry.
So you admit that he would often throw projectiles over something as trivial as his dinner being cooked incorrectly?
Occasionally,
But he did throw that fork that one time?
Yes.
Okay. Please read the section underlined in black starting on line 21.
Then he told Mrs. Barrett to leave.
So he was ordering her around that night?
I wouldn't say order him.
But he did tell her to leave the room?
Yes, he did.
Okay, thank you. Are you sure you heard gunshots in the backyard on December 18th?
Not 100% sure.
Okay, thank you. Your Honor, I would like to enter into evidence the final deposition in Superior Court in Milton, South Carolina.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
You mark the document as defense exhibit number 3 without objection.
Did you plead guilty to this crime?
Yes, I was attempting to get lesser
Thank you.
sentence.
Were you actually guilty?
No, I was not.
Okay. So does that mean that you lied on a legal document either by pleading guilty when you were actually innocent or by stating that you were innocent when you were actually guilty?
No.
Okay. Your Honor, I would like to impeach this witness because they've lied on multiple accounts and have been convicted of petty larceny.
Any objection?
Yes, Your Honor. As it states in the mock trial notebook, you can only impeach a witness if they have served a sentence under the law exceeding 1 year. And as we see in the mock trial notebook, the sentence that he was given was exactly 1 year. I do not think that Lee Porter has enough going against him to impeach.
I'm going to overrule the objection and allow the impeachment of the witness based on his prior inconsistent statements.
No further questions, Your Honor.
State the third call an additional witness.
Yes, Your Honor. I'd like to call Joe Armay to the stand.
Please introduce yourself to the court.
My name is Joe Armay, and I examined and did an autopsy on the deceased on December 19, 1988.
Please state your credentials.
I work for the DOA of the Haddonfield General Hospital, ER, as a medical doctor with a specialty in forensic pathology.
Your Honor, I would like you to qualify me as the expert witness.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
I'm going to deem this witness as an expert. You mark the second.
What is the deceased name?
John Walker Barrett.
What type of death was this?
On record, it was put down as a natural death, but on review, I would state that this was a homicide.
How many bullet wounds in total were observed on the body?
There were 5 in total.
Your Honor, I would like to enter into evidence the diagram of the body.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
Mark this as State's Exhibit number 4. Without objection.
Where is each gunshot wound on the body?
May I approach?
Can you please repeat the question?
Where is each gunshot wound on the body?
There was 1 gunshot wound to the posterior portion of the cranium. There was 1 gunshot wound to the upper portion of the left arm that went through and through. There are 2 gunshot wounds to the back, from back to front, slightly right of the midline, which were on approximately a 45-degree horizontal plane. And finally, there's 1 gunshot wound to the upper portion of the right leg that went through and through.
What bullet wound was the cause of the death?
The gunshot wound to the posterior portion of the cranium.
What was the path of the bullet when the deceased was shot in the back of the head?
The path of the bullet was from back to front on approximately a 45-degree horizontal plane. This is consistent with the bullet fired while the deceased was lying on the floor face down.
In your expert opinion, what does being shot in the back of the head when he was lying face down indicate?
In my opinion, this could not have been an act of self-defense by the defendant, as the deceased was lying on the floor face down when he was fired upon.
Please tell me about the powder marks on the body.
There are no powder marks visible. This means that the muzzle of the firearm is greater than 2 feet away from the bullet wound when fired. The lack of powder residue is also a clear indication that this was in fact a homicide and not a suicide.
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Examination?
Yes, Your Honor. Your Honor, I would like to enter into evidence Mr. Joe R. Mays, South Carolina Laboratory State Law Enforcement Division Record of Medical Examiner, document to the same.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
We mark the document as Defense Exhibit number 4 without objection.
Could you please approach the document?
May I approach?
To which side did you mark the age of the deceased?
On the right.
And to which side did you mark the time of death?
Right.
So is it true that you marked the correct answer with an X to the right of the item?
Could you repeat the question?
Is it true that you marked an X to the correct answer to the right of the item?
Yes.
So because you marked the correct answer to the right of the item, would it be safe to assume that an X is marked to the right of one side?
I feel like I've already answered this question during the direct examining. It was put down as a natural death, but on review, I would say that this was actually homicide clear because there was 5 bullet wounds into the
So would you consider this a mistake on the document?
paperwork mistake, yes.
Okay, could you please look at the bottom of the document to the part where it says autopsy or examine? Did you autopsy the body or did you examine it?
Objection, Your Honor. This question has been answered in direct examination.
Your response?
Would you allow me to reword the question?
I'll allow you. I'll sustain the objection. I'll allow you to read the question.
Okay, thank you. Could you please read that section?
Where?
The part that says autopsy or examine.
Autopsy and examine.
So is there an X beside autopsy?
I did read the autopsy, I just forgot to put it in a check mark.
So would you consider that another mistake?
Tiny paperwork mistake, yes.
Okay, Mr. May, would you agree in your expert opinion that you've made some professional mistakes on this paper?
Well, yes.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Do you have any additional witnesses?
No, Your Honor.
Any motions at this point? First witness.
Yes, Your Honor, I would like to call to the stand the defendant Barbara Allen Barrett.
take it.
What is your name, age, and where do you live?
My name is Barbara Allen Barrett, and I am 47 years old. I live at 2437 Rambling Woods Drive in Haddonfield, South Carolina.
Please tell us about your kids.
I have 2 children from a previous marriage, my little darlings. One is 16 and the other is 18.
How did you meet the deceased?
Me and John met at a alumni event for Vassar in 1978. I remember being captivated by his charm and his charisma. I was fascinated by him.
What happened at the party?
We talked for about an hour. John at that point was a rapidly ascending assistant solicitor, and he had just made headlines by winning a huge case in trial. We were both drinking a good bit, so we went out for a walk. All of a sudden, he pushed me down into the flower beds with this wild look in his eyes, and he started acting with a distinct impropriety. I managed to get out and go home, thankfully without causing too much of a scene.
Please tell us about your relationship with John before your marriage.
Well, after this incident, John apologized many times and flooded my house with flowers, so 2 days later, I agreed to meet him, and we started dating soon after that. John was kind and sensitive, and he was so caring. But he did occasionally drink, and when that happened, he became irrational, and he would leave the house often for no reason. I never knew what I did to upset him, but I know now that these drunken fits were just the tip of the iceberg.
What happened at 2 weeks before your wedding?
2 weeks before our wedding, when we had sent out all the invitations and made all the preparations, John came over. I could tell he had been drinking and he had a wild look in his eyes. I made him a weak drink on purpose, hoping to avoid a scene as usual, but he tasted it and threw it up against the wall. I mean, there was glass everywhere. He called me incompetent and stupid, and I tried to defend myself, but it just made things worse. He shoved me up against the wall and slapped me in the face. But then he started crying. He was instantly the kind, compassionate man I loved, and he apologized and promised me that he would never touch me with violence again. So I believed him, and we went on with the wedding.
What was your financial situation?
After our wedding, John went back to work. He was extremely dedicated, and we didn't strictly speaking need the money, but he loved his job, and he was so good at it.
Please tell us about your husband's appearance.
John was very handsome, and I constantly worried about his attraction to other women. One time, I actually walked in on him on a couch with a woman that I didn't know. He saw me, and that was actually the first time that I was truly beaten.
Please elaborate on that.
So John called to say he'd be home late, but I started to get worried around midnight when he still hadn't shown up. So I drove to his office, walked in, and he was on the couch with a blonde woman that I did not recognize. So I ran, and I drove home, and as fast as I could.
What did John do when he got home?
2 hours later, he showed up, and he started calling me a spy, and he said that I had forced him to spend time with other women. His face was red and contorted, and I thought he was going to try to hit me, so I ran for the door, but he caught me and started punching my face, and then when I fell down, he started kicking me. The next thing I knew, I was in an ambulance, and John left.
What did you tell the doctors?
I hoped to avoid a scene, so I just told them that I had fallen down some stairs.
And how did John respond to this?
The next day, he was so apologetic and repentant. He sent me flowers, and he promised there would be no more women, no other beatings, no nothing. And I felt like I couldn't live without him, so I agreed to forgive him.
What was your marriage like after the initial beating?
Well, it started a cycle. So I was beaten probably 3 or 4 times a year, sometimes so severely that I couldn't even leave the house for days.
And how did you respond to those beatings?
Well, at first I sought help, right? I went to see my minister, and he told me to be submissive to my husband and to forgive him. And then I also saw some doctors who gave me some tranquilizers to help me deal with beatings.
What evidence of these beatings may be apparent?
Not much. I did my best to keep it a secret, and I would often hide in my room for days after I was beaten. My parents would be so upset if the scandal of this got out.
How did John act before his death?
3 weeks before his death, John came to me, and he said that he thought that our marriage was in difficulty. He had been spending long hours at work, and I knew that I wasn't able to give him the same amount of attention that I used to because of that. So So I told him that I would stop all of my activities and spend more time with him. And I thought we'd smooth things over. But then over the next week or so, he started drinking more and becoming verbally abusive. One time we were in the bedroom and he actually took off his belt and started beating me with it. I was positive beyond a shadow of a doubt that he was trying to kill me. But I didn't think that I would actually die.
How did John act the night of his death?
The night that John died, he came home around 9. And I finally spoke up. I told him that I was upset that he was coming home so late. But then he told me that it was none of my business and that he wanted a divorce. I mean, I was shocked after all I had sacrificed for him, after all we had been through, he just was gonna leave me. So he told me that he was leaving that night and I got really upset. I must have been crying. So he sent me to the other room and I poured some wine. And then John walked into the room and he had the belt in his hands and he'd already tried to kill me with a belt before, so I was just so afraid he was gonna try again. And I don't remember what happened after that until the police came and took me away.
Who else was at the scene of the incident?
My housekeeper, Lee Porter.
What happened at the police station?
I was never read my rights. He just took me there and then I made a statement, but I didn't know that I had to. I never would have if I knew I had a choice. I was just so sad and so upset. I mean, I was sad throughout my entire marriage that I just couldn't live without my husband. And now she was gone.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Examination?
Yes, Your Honor.
You said that when you first met John at an alumni function, he pushed you down in the flower beds and started getting fresh. Is that true?
Yes, he was a very passionate
Thank you.
man.
So did you or did you not know that John Barrett was abusive before you married him?
I didn't see it as abuse. It was more...
Yes, I know, it's fine, thank you. When you were taken to the hospital, did you tell them that you had fallen down some stairs?
No, I hope to avoid a scene.
But you did say that you fallen down some stairs. So did you or did you not lie about the beatings when you were taken to the hospital?
I told them something that would make all
That you
of
had fallen down the stairs, which is a lie. So you are a liar.
It was necessary under the circumstances.
Thank you. He said that few people had ever seen the beatings. Is that true?
Yes, I tried to keep them as secret
Thank
as
you.
possible.
You said that your 2 children adored him. Is that true?
Yes.
The only other person at home the night you murdered him was Lee Porter, correct?
The night that John died, the only person there was Lee Porter, aside from
Thank you. You said that John was only abusive when he was drunk. Is that true?
No. He generally was, but he was so unpredictable.
Yes, you may, please.
No, I never said that.
You said that when John was sober, he was the most compassionate, kind, and sensitive man you'd ever known. Is that
Incredibly
true?
so.
So did you or did you not say that John was sober the night you murdered him?
The night that John died, he was sober, yes.
Did you ever see John with another woman?
I did once.
Did John tell you that he wanted a divorce the night you murdered him?
Yes.
So you just admitted that you murdered him?
No.
Can you
I've
say
said
yes?
multiple times that he just died.
Did you or did you not tell John that you were unhappy about how he came home late so much?
Yes, can you blame me?
So you were unhappy with him?
Extremely so.
You said that you don't remember having the Miranda warnings read to you, correct?
No, but I was extremely upset.
Your Honor, I would like to re-enter into evidence the State Exhibit number 3.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
Sorry, Your Honor. Thank you.
Could you please read the pink highlighted section, please?
I, Barbara Allen Barrett, have been warned by C.M. Chady, the person to whom this statement is made, that 1, I have the right to have a lawyer present to advise me both prior to and during any questioning. 2, if unable to employ a lawyer, I have the right to have a lawyer appointed to counsel with me both prior to and during any questioning. 3, I have the right to remain silent and not make any statement at all, and any statement I make may and probably will be used in evidence against me at my trial. And 4, I have the right to terminate the interview at any time I so desire.
So you were read the Miranda warnings.
I was extremely confused.
But you were read the Miranda warnings.
My statement says otherwise.
But you just lied that you said that you didn't remember how to
Objection, Your Honor. Asked and answered.
Let me sustain the objection.
Is that your signature at the bottom?
Yes.
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
The defense would like to call Dana McGuire to this.
Do you confirm that the evidence you shall give to this court and jury is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Please state your name, age, and occupation.
My name is Dana McGuire. I'm a practicing psychologist and I am 42 years old.
What is your area of specialty?
My area of specialty is dealing with battered and abused women.
What education have you received?
I have received my bachelor's degree in psychology from Campbell State University, as well as my master's degree in psychology, also from Campbell State, where my emphasis was on dysfunction in the family structure, and my thesis was entitled Passive Behavior and Learned Helplessness Within the Family Structure.
Please state your achievements since graduation.
Since graduation, I have written numerous articles, as well as a book entitled Living in Hell, The Life of a Battered Woman. I have been instrumental in developing a family crisis intervention program for the Haddonfield Police Department that is now being implemented in police departments across the world. I have collected data on well over 700 battered women. This data represents, in a general sense, the national crisis that is sweeping our nation, and I have an active counseling practice that has been open for 17 years, where most of my clients are battered women. In addition, I have testified in several cases, both civil and criminal.
Your Honor, I would like this witness to be considered as an expert witness.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
So moved.
How would you define a battering couple?
As a couple that goes through at least 2 battering cycles.
Please define a battering cycle.
A battering cycle can be divided into 2 phases. In the first phase, there are minor instances of physical or verbal abuse, and though these instances are minor, they serve to build tension on both sides of the relationship. This phase generally lasts from several weeks to several months. The second phase is the acute battering phase. In this phase, the man releases all of the built-up tension in a storm of extreme physical and verbal abuse unleashed upon the woman. This phase normally lasts from a few hours to a few days. And the third and final phase of the battering cycle is the loving phase. During this phase, both members of the relationship are extremely loving and extremely caring towards one another in an attempt to atone for their previous actions.
Why would a woman choose to stay in a battering relationship?
Many battered women have no legal or economic choice. However, all battered women are extremely psychologically dependent upon their husbands. They become attached to them and they become very depressed throughout their marriage. They also place very high values on the traditional views of a loving relationship that also needs to be marriage, feeling that if they fail at their marriage, they have entirely failed at life.
Please describe the theory of learned helplessness.
The theory of learned helplessness is best illustrated by an experiment done by Dr. Samuel Mitchells. In this experiment, Dr. Mitchells placed dogs in cages and shocked them at random intervals. These dogs first tried to escape, anything they could do to escape the beats, voluntary movement, if you will. However, when this failed, they became extremely passive. They gave up all movement altogether, even when the cage doors were left open and they were given a way of escape. This experiment shows that when any animal believes that they cannot escape the abuse, they give up, become passive, and just live with it.
So how does the theory of learned helplessness apply to this case?
In this case, Mrs. Barrett is in the same position as one of those dogs. She has been beaten throughout her entire marriage, and anything she did to try and avoid those beatings had just made them worse. Therefore, she sought refuge in the only avenue she had left, which is extreme passivity.
After living in a battering relationship, what is the result on the part of the woman?
Women in battering relationships become extremely depressed. They have very low self-esteem, and they suffer from a wide range of physical and mental symptoms as well as breakdowns.
Please elaborate on how a woman might deny reality.
Battered women deny reality much in the same way that a soldier in battle would choose to ignore or deny the violence surrounding him so that he can continue to fight. Battered women deny or hide behind a facade that hides the beatings, so that they are never truly knowledgeable of how much danger they are in.
How does this relate to the victim of abuse?
In this case, the defendant had continued to deny the beatings and deny how much they were truly hurting her. She never saw her husband as who he truly was until the night of the 18th.
Please tell the court how the defendant qualifies as a battered woman.
I've had the opportunity to interview Mrs. Barrett on several occasions for several hours each time. The first of these sessions happening 2 weeks after the killing of her husband. During these interviews, it come to my professional opinion that her situation on the night of the 18th was exactly the same as you would expect from someone who had been beaten for many, many years.
Please explain to the court what happened when the defendant tried to leave John.
When John approached Mrs. Barrett and asked for a divorce, it unleashed a floodgate of fury that had been building up inside her for years. She saw it as a betrayal of her every effort to pacify him into staying in that marriage with her, and a waste of all the effort and sacrifices that she had put in. She was no more in control of her actions on that night than she was at the sunrise or the coming and going of the tide. From a psychological viewpoint, that is the time that the facade was broken, and she saw her husband as who he truly was. A man capable of not only causing serious injury, but also a man capable of causing her death. This was simply a tragic end to a tragic marriage.
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor. So you said in your witness statement that you have interviewed 300 people for one particular case study. Is that correct?
Yes, there were over 700 women total.
So all 700 of these women, and including those 300 for the case study, consisted of volunteer sampling, were they not?
That is correct. I mean, I couldn't force someone to testify.
So seeing as all of the women that you have interviewed were volunteers, do you not think that that particular test or any test you have done could be rendered inconclusive because the results might not be valid?
Absolutely not. Because of the size of the sample size, it is a national average, if you will, even if it is not a conclusive decision.
Even one as small as 700 people?
Yes.
Thank you. So, is Barbara Barrett a client of yours?
Yes, she is.
When did she first come to see you? Was it before or after the murder?
It was after the death of her husband, about 2 weeks after.
So, don't you think that in the 2 weeks that after she murdered her husband, she could have made up the entire story of her being battered and abused to shield herself from a murder rap?
I'm sure that is potentially an option. However,
Thank you.
due to my training, it is up to me.
So, what did you say in your witness statement about the end of an abusive relationship?
Generally, an abusive relationship.
So, instead of murdering her husband, she could have simply just walked away?
No, she was extremely psychologically dependent on her husband.
So you are admitting that what you said in your witness statement about that specific fact is inaccurate?
No, I'm simply saying that it does not apply to this case.
So not every relationship ends by either killing each or separates? Because that seems to be what you said in your witness statement.
That is what I said. And every battered relationship that I've had the opportunity to overview has in fact ended in either a separation or the death of one
Thank
of the
you.
members.
Are you being paid to be here, Mrs. McGuire?
I am. You see, my time is very valuable, and therefore I do charge to appear.
Who are you being paid by?
The defendant.
So, don't you think that with your very large paycheck comes a strong bias towards Barbara Barrett?
Hardly very large, considering my years of experience. As I said, my time is valuable. I could be being paid by many others to help them with their cases. So I do charge.
So I'm taking that as a yes.
Absolutely.
You said that Barbara Barrett could not control her actions that night. Is that correct?
That is exactly what I said. Yes.
So what were the actions that night? Were they murdering her husband?
Absolutely not. They were self-defense. It was unleashing all the fury that had built up in her for the last however many years she had been married.
Thank you. I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you very much.
The defense has no more witnesses, Your Honor.
Ladies and gentlemen, all the evidence has been presented in regard to this case. Now each side will have an opportunity to make closing remarks. Again, these remarks are not evidence. It is merely an overview of what each side believes the evidence has or has not shown. Would the defense like to move forward with closing remarks first?
Yes, Your Honor.
May it please the court, your honor, and ladies and gentlemen of the jury. Barbara Barrett's freedom is being hung in the balance because her husband was abusing her for so many years, she finally couldn't take it anymore. She snapped, if you will. Our client has committed these acts because of years of mental and physical abuse. During Mrs. Barrett's marriage with John, she was afraid of her husband. She became so passive to the constant abuse that she went numb to it all. When Mr. Barrett came home on the night of December 18, 1988, to his wife, who was extremely dependent upon him, he told Mrs. Barrett that he wanted a divorce. She couldn't believe it. Mrs. Barrett realized for the first time that she needed to defend herself from her husband, who had come into the living room with a belt in hand, which made Mrs. Barrett believe that her husband was going to abuse her again. Today we have seen Mrs. Barrett had a good reason to fear her husband John because of the past abuse. But as soon as Mr. Barrett told his wife that he wanted a divorce, she felt as if she could not live without him. To quote Dana McGuire, quote, "She could have no more left her husband than she could have severed her right arm," end quote. Murder Defined has two main components, malice and forethought. Our client never meant to harm her husband. She committed these actions because of her manipulative, mentally, and physically abusive husband. Mrs. Barrett loved her husband dearly, which proves that there was no malice. Our client has no memory of her actions because, in the words of Dana McGuire, quote, "Her floodgates of fury that had built up for years finally unleashed," meaning that Mrs. Barrett had no forethought. While the prosecution has tried to prove the guilt of Mrs. Barrett with testimonies from Lee Porter, the housekeeper, Officer Cheney, the responding officer, and Joe Armay, the medical examiner, the prosecution has still failed in proving the guilt of Mrs. Barrett. Lee Porter is not a credible witness because of the dishonest behavior that has been displayed in the past, as well as the inconsistent testimony given by Porter today. Officer Cheney is overworked, which has caused him to make multiple mistakes on numerous documents. Joe Armay has too many inconsistencies to be an expert witness. The prosecution seems to believe that if they throw around the word murder often enough, it will prove their case in the absence of any real evidence. All the testimonies that were given today by prosecution were too inconsistent to convict Barbara Allen Barrett of any. Today, I and my co-counsel have painted a clear picture of a woman who had been beaten into passivity by her abusive husband, a woman who suffered tremendously at the hands of her husband. Because of this, we, the defense, are asking you, the judge, and you, the people of the jury, to find Barbara Allen Barrett not guilty of all charges. Thank you.
Yes, Your Honor. May it please the court, Your Honor, and ladies and gentlemen of the jury, my name is Elijah Powell, and I shall be making the closing remarks on this case. We have proven that the defendant is a harmful murderer, and the state should not let her get away with this horrible crime. It is the state's job to make sure that she never has the opportunity to hurt or kill anyone else. The defendant had a forethought. The defendant has tried to argue that she was an abused and battered woman. They claim that she had no control over the events of that night, and she did not murder her husband. They claim it was in defense of an attempt upon her life. However, the defendant's testimony is not credible. She even admitted to killing her husband in the police report. And he proved that Porter heard Barbara in the backyard practicing with the same gun used to shoot and kill John Walker Barrett. There is also no proof that she was, in fact, an abused woman. As she stated in her witness statement, no one ever saw the evidence of the supposed beatings, and when she went to the hospital, she lied about how she got bruises. And even if she was, in fact, battered and abused, she knew that John was abusive the first time they even met. Either of these options shows lack of character on the defendant's part, because she could have just left him at any time. She had no reason not to. As the prosecution so eloquently stated in their opening statement, John, quote, continued to beat her without any sign of stopping, end quote. And I don't know about you guys, but if someone I just met was even slightly abusive to me, I would not associate myself with them at all, let alone go on a date with them. The side of the defense has tried to argue that it was self-defense, but as we see in Officer Cheney's witness statement, the defendant has admitted that she was not threatened at all that night. Also, the lack of powder marks and the orientation of the body relative to the shot show that there was no imminent threat to the defendant. We have also proved that the defendant has committed murder, which is the unlawful killing of another person with an evil intent, which we have proven with the lack of evidence pointing to abuse on that night. Forethought, which we have proved in the form of practice in the yard with the same gun used to shoot and kill the deceased. And even though the motive is not necessarily part of a murder conviction, we have shown motive in the form of prosecution exhibit 2. Putting the defendant in jail will not bring back the late John Walker Barrett, but it is the duty of the state to put away this dangerous criminal. The request of the defense that says Barbara should be got free of all charges is absolutely ridiculous because of the overwhelming evidence to the contrary. This is why the court must demand this murderer be given a full sentence for murder harassment. Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, the jury reviewed all of the evidence that will be presented in this case. Now it's your responsibility to determine whether the state has met its burden of proof by proof beyond a reasonable doubt. The defendant was entered a plea of not guilty, therefore it is the burden of the state to prove each and every element of the offense of murder. Murder is defined as the killing of another person with malice and forethought, either expressed or implied. It is your duty to weigh the facts and the evidence and to render your verdict accordingly. You cannot consider the subject of punishment or sympathy. Your duty is confined to the question of whether the defendant is guilty or not. Again, it's your duty to determine whether the state or the city has met its burden of proof, and your verdict must be unanimous. I charge you to deliberate and to work to consider a unanimous verdict in the following. We are in recess.
All rise. Court is now in recess.